Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting for January 16th, 2020, which is now called to order. We ask that you silence your cell phones if you haven't already. If you are not the applicant and you wish to speak on a matter, we ask that you fill out one of these white forms and submit it to us so we know who you are and to call on you. The first item on the agenda is to receive the minutes from the January 2nd meeting. Do we have any changes to the minutes or a motion to approve?
I'll move the item.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the minutes from the January 2nd, 2020 meeting. Cast your votes, please. And they're approved. Next order of business is continuance requests or withdrawals. Do we have any?
I have two. The first one is item 2, case number 14692. The applicant has withdrawn this application. And item 12, case 14616, applicant requests a continuance to February 6th.
Anyone here to speak on item 12? Have a motion to continue that.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second to continue item number 12 as requested. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved. There are no matters on the consent docket. We'll move to items requiring separate vote. Can we call the first case?
Item 1, case 14708, request for special exception of Thomas Clark to allow a manufactured home to serve as a second dwelling to relieve a medical hardship at 13125 Southeast 40th Street.
Hi, I'm Angela Clark. I'm Thomas's wife. I apologize. This is the first time I've ever requested this, so if I mess it up, please let me know. We're asking that we be able to put a mobile home on our almost 5-acre property. My mother-in-law, aunt, and grandmother, and 4 adopted foster kids have all moved here from Tennessee. My mother-in-law is 4 years out from tonsil cancer. She has lingering issues with forgetfulness and some memory loss. She has adopted 4 teenage boys from 12 to 17. She's been a foster parent for as long as I can remember. The kids that she has are always high risk. They all have developmental, behavioral, and emotional issues due to the severe physical, sexual, and emotional abuse suffered from their biological parents. Her sister, Johnny, is currently has small cell lung cancer. She's just finished chemotherapy, but she's still getting radiation. And then their 80-year-old mother is also living with us. She is 4 years out from stomach cancer and still trying to recover. You know, being 80, it's hard to recover from issues like that. So we would just ask that the 7 of them be able to move to a mobile home on our land.
In your conversations with staff, I think staff has noted that it's a rural area where other mobile homes can be found, and you've shown staff that it can meet the conditions for the request. I don't particularly have any questions. Now, my parents have fostered over 200 kids, and so I'm very familiar with that and appreciate what you folks are doing. Board members, do you have any questions?
Max 3 years. Yeah.
Okay, 3 years is the maximum.
It could have. It was going to be. Yeah.
So 3 years is the maximum. Is that what you're requesting, or a shorter period of time?
3 years.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve special exception in case number 14709 for the reasons that it meets the statutory conditions. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you all.
Item 3, case 14700, request of G&S sign service for a variance to the maximum amount of wall signage at 777 Northwest 63rd Street.
My name is Jim Gleason, represent G&S Sign Services, Oklahoma City. Before I get started, I just wanted to, I've been before the board several times this last year, but I just wanted to say that in 2019, our company pulled 127 permits in the city of Oklahoma City, and it's not common for me to come before the board, so I just wanted to give a little bit of reference and that I'm not coming up here every time I have a sign permit or a sign issue. For the most part, the code in Oklahoma City, we can work within the code, and we don't have a lot of issues. Recently, we had the SSM Health change-out, so with every hospital, there's a struggle to get it to meet code. So with this location, we're in an office zone. With the size of the building, we're only allowed 57 square foot total, and that's total for all four sides. So when we have an office zone, it's difficult to find enough area for signage. In this case, there's already a tenant there, Patterson, that consumes all 57 square foot. So the building currently 69,000 square foot office space, and there is only two tenants now. There's Patterson and SSM Health. We're asking to install signage for one more tenant, which the building, again, is now 100% occupied, so if we're granted this, we're not going to be coming back and asking for a third or a fourth. It'll just be this second one. If we split the 57 square foot into two, we're not going to be readable. With only square foot, with dealing with square foot, and we're looking at buildings, we're looking at the best readability and the direction of the traffic. So when we have a code that allows a certain amount of square footage per elevation, we're able to take those elevations, like on this one being 63rd Street, heading east and west. On this building, what we would have done is we would have moved this SSM Health, we would have put that on the east or the west elevation. But being only allowed 57 square foot for the entire building, it forces us to put all of our signage on the south elevation because it's just such a small amount. With doing that, it changes our angle of readability, so we're running basically parallel with the front of the building as traffic. So as we're looking up at the building, it's reducing that viewability. So when we cut that in half, we've only got 27 square foot per tenant. And I'm not saying we can't do that. If we do that, we had the drawings in the presentation. The signs are just so small that, like I said, they're not going to be readable. And it's not really a monetary issue. The hospital would be willing to split it if it was readable, but it's just not going to be. The undue hardship that we have is not hills, trees, or anything. It's just the code. If this was, if the code in an O2, when we have a single tenant, we normally have sufficient square footage to work with. It's not something that we haven't been before the board and requested before. So I think there was a comment the last meeting that it'd be setting a precedence possibly, but we have been before the board. The sheet that I brought, that I handed out, if you look at that one, the top photo shows the same O2 zone, the Loves building, which has a calculation of 312 square foot on that building. The one below that, and 150 square foot is the maximum in an O2. With our calculations, we're only allowed 57, but 150 is the max allowed. The one before that, it has a total of 205 square foot. And then if you go to the next page, in 2014, October 2014, we were approved, I presented to the board, and we were approved 545 square foot on the north and south, 276 square foot on the west, given a total for that building, 821 square foot total, and that was also zoned O2. We're not asking for 800 square foot. We're not even asking for 150 square foot. We're just asking for what we feel is the minimum required. It is twice what's allowed, but it's still well under the 150, and we're requesting the 114 square foot so we can properly display both the tenants in this building.
At the prior meeting, I know I raised some concerns, particularly about precedent. I don't know, I haven't gone back and watched the proceedings from these other meetings where variances were apparently granted, or at least one was apparently granted. I can tell you right now, I don't think I would have been on board absent some very good arguments for 821 feet. So, I mean, I don't speak for the whole board, but I don't think I would have been on board for that. And again, I just don't particularly see that a hardship is met. All you said is that a hardship is required by the code, but having or wanting a sign, to me, is not a hardship necessarily. And what I most genuinely am worried about going forward is any building that has multiple tenants getting multiple signs based on us granting a variance here. At the last meeting, we talked about possibly limiting it in some way. I don't know. I didn't see any changes to the application. I don't know that even that would make me comfortable with the application, but those are my concerns, and I'm also only one board member, so if other board members have any questions or comments, I can open that up now.
The way we used to do this was, name the building, and then tenants had their, either monument sign or out front, and this is who we are. It worked well that way. I just don't think we ever had any intention of this type of signage on buildings.
Can you remind me, Mr. Gleason, in front of this building, is this the one that actually has a sign that also has the names of the tenants?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So
There's a small monument out there.
Okay.
Is anyone else here to speak on this matter? Do we have a motion?
So we can vote. I'll move approval.
Do we have a second?
Super. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the application case number 14700. Cast your votes, please. Oh, more. And it's not approved.
Great, thank you.
So seeing the vote, for the purposes of the record, we'll need a motion to deny and then approve that motion to deny.
Okay, I move we deny.
Do we have a second? Second. Motion and a second to deny the application in case number 14700. Cast your votes, please. And that motion is approved.
Item 4, case 14664, request of APC Towers for a variance to the condition imposed upon approval of special permit 517 located at 2210 Southwest 10th Street.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. This is a bit of an unusual case. It's a case that Mr. Privet would have heard as a special permit as his role as a planning commission member. And I say it's unusual because what we're seeking to do is to essentially unwind a self-imposed condition on the special permit. These cell tower cases tend to be strange sometimes and long. Commissioner Privet has the, I guess, good fortune of having sat through hours and hours of testimony, and you'll be glad to know there is a movement afoot at the city council level to make these cell towers a special exception, so you will get the benefit of hearing hours and hours of testimony in the future. So what we had at the outset at the special permit application was what was called a monopine. So it was a stealth tower that was designed to look like a 75-foot tall pine tree right next to stockyards. This was not a requirement of planning commission. It was not a requirement of city council. It was a self-imposed requirement because of the landlord demanding it at the time of the negotiation of the lease. In fact, what I handed out was a consultant's report done by the city's consultant. The city, after dealing with lots of protested cell tower cases, has gone and hired its own consultant. One of the things that the federal law requires is a showing that we meet certain criteria, and there was a concern by neighbors in these cases that the city was basically in a position of having to just take our word for it that we've met that technical requirement under the federal act. So what the city has done is hired a consultant to go and test our data to confirm that, in fact, there is a gap in either coverage or capacity, and therefore, based upon the RF data, we've met that burden. So the reason I gave you this report, if you'll go to the second to last page, of note, the consultant for the city, the second to last bullet point, recommends approval, but he actually recommends that we do a typical monopole rather than a stealth monopole. So it was the city's preference through its consultant that we had a traditional monopole. It allows for ease of co-location of other tenants on the pole, which is in the city's interest to reduce the proliferation of additional cell towers. And what we found was we got it approved through the city council because at the time, again, the landlord was demanding this monopine. Well, prior to installation of the cell tower, we had to go get approval from SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. They denied the application based upon the view of this monopine. If you can imagine Stockyard City, you will know that there are no 75-foot tall pine trees. So although there is an effort to make it look stealth, it would stick out. And so that's why they denied our application. So we met with staff, both Municipal Counselor's Office and Development Services, to find a path forward, and the path forward was seeking a variance. And so when you look at what our hardship is that if not granted the variance, we literally could not build this tower. I don't know if you've taken the time to read my legal memo dated January 10, 2019, but what we established in that is there is a significant gap in the capacity that needs to be filled pursuant to the minimal requirements that the FCC requires us to have and maintain. Therefore, SHPO's denial and the way that the special permit currently reads, we would not be able to install this monopine. Because it is in Stockyards, we did go to the Stockyard Design Review Committee in November and presented this case, and they have unanimously recommended approval of the variance to you, the Board of Adjustment. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I believe we've met the necessary elements of a variance, but would be happy to answer any questions. I also have Romel, who can speak to all the technical data, if Mr. Privet is so inclined to hear it again, or if any of you want to hear it. We also have Victor McAllister, who's here, who can talk about site acquisition matters. So any questions you might have, we believe we have it covered.
Did you get any protests from, I think her name is Kelly, the lady that's running the Stockyards Bid District?
No. There's been no protest on this tower, which is frankly unique in cell tower applications, but there's been no protest whatsoever in this application.
Mr. Privet, were you present for this hearing? Were you on the Planning Commission at this time?
Yeah.
Do you recall any details that we would need to know? I think that accurately reflects a summary of everything.
As much as we're able to, review these, there's not really anything. It's a cell tower.
I tend to get more groans as I approach the podium with my, packet that's this thick showing all the data, so.
I think the fact that it was a requirement imposed by the landowner that apparently was not unanimous tips in favor of the application. I don't think I had any questions or comments, but I can support it.
Could make it look like a windmill. Maybe?
So we're just going to go traditional monopole.
Okay.
Mr. Privet misread it initially in thinking that it said a palm tree. So if there's any interest in replacing this to look like a palm tree.
Of palm trees.
They do a cactus we could do. Maybe you'll get the opportunity to see a cactus at some point.
Has anyone signed up to speak on this matter? I don't have anyone, but okay. We have any other questions or a motion?
I move that we approve the variance.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the variance in case number 14664 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a variance. Cast your votes, please.
Thank you.
And it's approved.
Item 5, case 14703, request of James Boswell for a variance to permit a sign located within the street right-of-way at 300 Southwest 3rd Street.
My name is James Boswell, 1400 South Trenton Avenue, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm the architect on the sign project. This is for the restaurant in the Sister Hotel Park, Spark. Excuse me. The setbacks and sidewalks are extremely deep in the area, and the front of the building kind of faces the park. So the back of the building kind of faces the boulevard. So our client feels they need a little bit more visibility for recognition. So we've designed this monument sign, ground sign, kind of represents their logo and kind of the tower element of the building architecturally. We kind of see this being a kind of a selfie type of sign, interactive with people and pedestrians. It is well out of the main traffic of pedestrians along the sidewalk. We've been working with city utilities and ONG. There's a lot of utilities in there. Talking to the original civil engineer and landscape architect on the park, no one considered signage. So we've gotten approval by DDRC, which I think is in your packet. Is there any questions?
Board members, any questions, comments?
Nope. I'd say it's pretty peculiar. Wouldn't be happening too often.
I think for me, wasn't entirely convinced one way or the other, but the fact that DDRC suggested and recommended approval kind of tips it over for me. But is anyone else here to speak on this matter? Any other questions or comments or a motion?
Move that we approve the variance application in case number 14703.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the variance in case number 14703 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a variance. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you.
Item 6, case 14709, request of Science Museum, Oklahoma for a variance to permit a sign within the street right-of-way and the minimum clearance below the sign, 2020 Remington Place.
My name is Kevin Wilson. I'm with Science Museum, Oklahoma, 2020 Remington Place. This is the first time I've appeared before you guys, so if I leave anything out, please pardon me. We are asking for a variance to place a backlit sign within an existing structure that was originally permitted as a headache bar off of Remington Place. And the headache bar was permitted at 10 feet, which allows us to keep buses out of the parking lot, tour buses, school buses. We have separate parking now for those. And the sign ordinance makes it so that clearance height needs to be 14 feet. So we're asking for a variance to that. The building is set quite a ways back from Remington Place, about 250 feet. So it's a ways from the street. There's no signage on the street. We have a sign close to the building, but especially for out-of-town, out-of-state visitors, it's hard to find the entrance. So we would like to put a backlit sign within the structure.
Yeah, being familiar with this area and this property, I agree that the building's set back pretty far, and it's difficult to see exactly what it is if you're not already familiar with it. I think this checks most of the boxes for a variance. My only concern was maybe with the brightness, so if you could speak to the brightness and maybe the direction of the sign, that would help me understand the application a little bit more.
The sign is basically, it's our logo, so it's backlit within a box, and the letters are are like plexi push-through letters. So the lighting is only where the lettering would be. The sign faces to the north or to the street, Remington Place. Across the street from us is just parking for Remington Park, and then the big intersection at MLK and Remington is kind of to the west of us, and the zoo to the east.
Board members, any questions? Is anyone else here to speak on this matter? You have a motion?
I'd like to motion that we approve of the variance for case number 14709.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the variance in case number 14709 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a variance. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you.
Item 7, case 14710, request of Victor Espinoza for a variance to the maximum allowed size for a residential accessory building at 128 Southwest 83rd Street.
Hi, it's because we're like, we had a garage there, like it's kind of small, and we like make it to the back a little bigger because we were trying to put like we have those like mechanical stuff, you know, like for construction, all that kind of stuff. Everything was like on the woods, and they got lost whenever they got ugly with the water, and we add on it, but we added with no permit because we was going to add just a little bit on it, and the city said, hey, you need a permit, and we went and tried to apply. They tell me, no, we can't. And we're like, okay, we tried, because we built part of it. We already spent like 25 grand on it, and we just tried to make it a little bigger, that way we can put all the mechanical stuff or our stuff, because those houses are kind of old. It's like on the side. We don't have a lot of place to put stuff on it, because even to go to the house, it's 2 houses near. It's just 1 parking space. It's a little hard there, really hard. We have a lot of land, but we just add on the old building, old garage, we add on it. That's what we did.
I struggle with this one. I mean, it's just a classic case of someone building something without a permit.
Yes.
I don't know if you had a contractor build it or if you built it yourself, but just building it without a permit and then finding out after the fact that it's not permitted and then trying to get a variance after the fact.
Yeah, and we went to the city to ask for the permits, you know, to do it right. And they told us, come here, that way if you can add on it. We're like, okay, I'm trying to do everything how I'm supposed to do. My uncle's the one who started doing it, you know, because we always get our stolen lost and all that kind of stuff. We're like, where are we going to put it at? Because I see next door, you know, they have a garage bigger, and the other house has another one, so I was like, maybe we can do it.
Yeah, no, and we don't know as the board what their circumstance was. If they came and got a variance the right way, if they are not in compliance, we don't know. We do know that yours is not in compliance currently. I
even have the plans up. I got somebody who do everything like how it's supposed to go. They check and everything, and we hired like the architect to see.
In cases like these, I kind of like to put myself in the position of if you were coming here before you were building the structure, where would I come out on that decision? And in that case, I don't think I would support the building of the structure in the first place. I would have probably had you make it a lot smaller, if extended at all. But the fact that you're 500 square feet over, I mean, without any of the statutory conditions being met, I don't see how I can support it now just because of the fact that it's met. And in addition to that, the problem with that is if we retroactively approve these, obviously everyone that's wanting to get a variance but doesn't want to go through the process or doesn't think it'll get approved will just build their structures and then come to the board and try to get a variance because the hardship is it's already been built and they're going to lose $25,000 or whatever it is. If you had a contractor build it, I think there are some remedies. You might want to talk to a lawyer about that, but
We have a contractor, whoever do construction, like legally, we have somebody who came and did it.
I guess what I'm saying is I think they might have messed up something if they didn't come before us first. So you might talk to them or a lawyer about that. But I'm also only one member of the board, but as it currently is, I can't support it, but I can be outvoted by the rest of the board. So.
How big is that lot?
How big is a lot?
It's not an acre, is it?
It's 1 acre. Because like that other house is next to it, they have like they have like their own shop too, bigger too, and I was like, I didn't know it was going to be like.
They might be in violation as well, so we don't know.
So I was going to ask you, have you gotten any complaints or anything on it?
No, the city came to me, hey, get all your permits.
So it was the city that
Yeah.
notified you that?
The city, because on the front of the house, they sold the house, and the city was coming and inspected because they were remodeling the house across the street, and the city came to inspect something there, and they saw the construction. Nobody else has said anything. Even my neighborhood say nothing.
And you stated that you did hire a contractor to do the
We hire a contractor who do construction to do it, but we didn't have permits on it.
No,
Yeah.
all through.
I think the only option,
What I can do on it.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to give you advice or anything, but if there's a way that you could make it smaller than it currently is, maybe there's a chance the board could say, okay, we might grant a 10 or 20% variance or something like that.
But you know how smaller, like the less I can make, because they told me normally it used to be like one garage, like the small ones, and we just make it double. And they say, no, it needs to be just almost the same size it used to be, but it's too small. I cannot fit I just can fit one car there. And I was needed like for all the equipment not to be outside on the ground.
And I should have prefaced what I was saying by saying one of the conditions that we have to meet is when we're granting a variance, the variance that we're granting is the minimum necessary to alleviate your hardship. And so that's where we usually say, do you really need to double it or triple it when you could get by with 20% or something like that? I don't know that there's a way to make this building or this structure smaller. I don't know. If you wanted some time to see if you could make it smaller, maybe we could grant a continuance. But other than that, I can't support it. I don't know the rest of the board members, but it doesn't look like you have the votes to get it approved.
Can I ask you, you haven't received any complaints about the structure itself, but prior to building it, when you had all the equipment out there, you said it was like in the wooded area.
Yes, it's
Were
like.
you getting complaints from the neighbors then?
Yes, they say, hey, you have a lot of mess there. Hey, I tried to put everything in order, to have everything has. That's why I was like, they always like, hey, can you clean it up, fix it all the time? I was like, hey, I just came to work, I just put a trailer on the back. No, just put it right, just put it like this. And I'm like, okay, then I think so. I need to do something about it. That's why we built it, because it was really stressful, like, every time.
Yeah, and I think that would potentially be a hardship, but the proper thing to do would have been to get a variance before you built the structure and then built the structure, right? That would have been the measure, if you were getting these complaints and stuff. But, and from what I heard, it sounds like they went to the city and the city told them to get a variance, and then your uncle built it anyway, or someone built it anyway.
So let me clarify that, because I had a question about that too. You said you went to the city to get a permit, and they told you what?
Oh, no, okay, we went to the city after they came and see we had it done already, part of it done. They told me, go to the city, get a permit. I was okay, let me do it the right way. I went to the city, and they told me, get your zoning plans and all that kind of stuff. We did it, but tell me, hey, no, because it's too big, go upstairs and come here. I was okay, I'm going to do that.
That makes sense. Sorry, I was confused as to how that process went. But so I think that's what Sam's saying, is that, I mean, they had, obviously you guys know what the proper steps would have been, so now we're dealing with what we have here. And I tend to agree. I just think that in this case, I mean, it is 500 feet, and again, these are just my comments. Like Sam says, I'm one board member, but I think the result, if you have to take the building down, then we're back to square one where you've got debris everywhere and you've got neighbors complaining about the debris where they're not complaining about a building now. And I get what Sam's saying as far as if we let people come and we approve an application after they've already done something, everyone would do that.
I know, it's like whenever you do something wrong.
And so, I mean, for me, my considerations are given the size of how big this lot is and that there's not anything to the south of it. It's completely empty. And, I mean, those are just, I'm sharing my thoughts with the board. So.
And one thing I know, I mean, if I was going to favor anything, is all the obvious accessory buildings in this area are twice or three times the size of what you're looking for just by the scale. So, you know, I'm willing to bet more than half of those are non-conforming structures, but, you know, they didn't get caught or they didn't get somebody mad at them and get reported, so they're not here right now. But they could be here any day also. I don't know if that's enough for me to support this or not.
Do you think there's a way to reduce the size of the building at all?
¿Cómo cuánto lo puedo quitar? ¿Un poquito? ¿No? ¿Cuánto se le agrego? ¿Cuánto le agrego?
Is it constructed of brick?
Huh?
Is it brick?
No, it's concrete. It's like the garage, and then we put concrete on the bottom, and then it's like another garage. It's like those small garage doors, we just make another one. It used to be one there, and we just add another one, little one, to put the stuff inside. Then I don't know what to do. Because I try to do it, that way people start complaining about it. Oh, and I don't know what else I can do.
Do you think it's possible you can get with the contractor and maybe get a continuance and see if there's something that can be done prior to a vote being taken today?
The contractors say like how it is. He already checked everything. You know how it was. Everything's right made and everything's how it's supposed to. Done, but only the
it's not
size.
whether or not the structure was built correctly.
Yes, the structure is built correctly.
No, that's not the question. The question is that it's too, the answer is that there's too much square footage that you've exceeded. So therefore, is there anything that can be done where you can downsize the area?
I don't think so, because it's just 1 acre of the house. That's only I can do. Even like example, you don't approve it, where I'm gonna put all the stuff at. Like I'm gonna leave it on the grass, or what I can do. That's my concern. I don't know what I can do. I know it's our house, but I don't know what I can do. If they're not gonna let me put a bill or nothing to put my stuff on it, then where I'm gonna put it at? Then I need to buy a new house or.
Well, I think that's, part of what Sam was saying before, which is, had you followed the correct proceedings, if you would have come and asked and told us that ahead of time, we have a business, we have all this construction equipment, or whatever, that could have qualified as a hardship of why you needed a variance to make it bigger than what it is now. Mm-hmm. But the issue and the problem is that you're doing this after the fact. And so part of our responsibility is trying to make sure that we're not, we're trying to abide by the ordinances and the codes. And by allowing you, potentially, one of the concerns is that somebody else may later come and say, well, I'll just build it anyway, and then I can go and ask for a variance. So that's what
we thought, like, whenever we did that, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the city. Maybe, they give me citations, but I didn't know that place has a lot of codes, Because if, you go to city, they give you a permit, they give you citation, but I didn't know it was going to have so many codes all the way to come here. Because I saw next door, I saw like big shop, they even have shops there. I was like, I didn't know.
This question for staff. Can you do an SPUD on an acre?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I was talking with municipal council about this issue as an alternative. It doesn't seem like you necessarily have the full support of the board. One thing you could do is request a continuance and see if you can work with city staff about, instead of coming before this board, going in front of perhaps planning commission and seeing if you can get some relief from planning commission. City staff might tell you, no, that's not possible. And so you have to come back before us. And you'd see Mr. Privet over there. But by continuing it, instead of us taking a vote on it and potentially denying the application, you'd still get your application fee, and you could roll that application fee into the fee that you would pay to planning commission. So that's, I think, what probably makes the most sense, is to get a continuance for maybe a month and see if you can work with city staff.
Go to the city, right?
Go to the city staff, maybe go to an attorney, maybe go to your contractor, and just see if you can work out another solution other than coming before this board.
How long would it take to do an SPUD? I don't know what the time limits are, so I'm
Probably
asking.
6 to 12 months.
No, it's about 12 weeks, start to finish.
I think if we continued this one for maybe a month, it would give her time to figure out whether she could do that or not. And if we saw that she was doing that, then we'd continue it
Okay.
until she's done with that.
Were your building and your neighbor's building, they built at the same time?
No, it was there. Whenever we bought the house, I saw the building there.
Okay, because yours looks exactly like theirs, like. But,
Oh, it's two houses. They're two next to me. It's another house looks exactly the same.
Yeah, they're like.
Yeah, and that's why it's kind of hard, because whenever you go pull in, it's like it looks like apartments
Right.
to go inside. No, it's really stressful.
Yeah, and your neighbor's storing looks like a tag-along trailer behind his garage too. So that's.
Yeah.
But
And whenever we bought it, we thought, okay, it's a lot of backyard. We can maybe build in to put all their stuff, but we didn't know. I thought it was like just city, maybe sanitation, but I didn't know they were going to send me all the way here.
So that, I think it makes sense to continue this application for a month. I can't make a motion, but that's what makes sense to me.
I feel a denial coming on, so I'll move we continue this for a month.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to continue case number 14710.
no, 13th.
We're going to get the exact date for you.
My motion is for the 20th. Yeah, give them at least a month. Okay.
Motion and a second to continue case number 14710 to the February 20th, 2020 meeting. Cast your votes, please. And the application's continued.
Okay, thank you. Interesting.
Item 8 is case number 14698, application for special exception of Alejandro Del Mastro to allow lodging accommodations home sharing at 2917 Northwest 69th Street.
Is the applicant present? A courtesy to the applicant, will move case number 8, or item number 8, to the end of the docket.
Item 9, 14702, application for a special exception of Slack Investment to allow home sharing at 808 and 810 Northwest 45th Street.
My name's Kyle Haugen, 2649 Northwest 181st Street, Oklahoma City. We have a duplex located on roughly 45th and Chartel, not in the historic preservation district, and we're looking to have an Airbnb there, basically.
Have you had another application with us before?
Nope.
Okay. Can you go over just the two properties that you're
It's upstairs and downstairs duplex. It's a two-bedroom. So,
2 bedrooms each?
yes.
Okay. And can you talk about the parking?
Yeah, in the back, there is parking, a big parking pad, as well as a garage. So you can see it on that picture right there. So, and there is a driveway to the back. It's kind of narrowed, so there's no parking on that. And there's no sidewalk also but no one would park in the driveway anyway because it's kind of narrow. You can only get one car through.
And the users will have access to the garage to park in?
Right now, no one has asked to have the garage because we don't have like clickers, but if that was a request, we would do that. And we also would accommodate, I've watched some of the previous concerns on the street parking as a concern, and we're happy to advertise it as non-street parking. But we really never had a request, for that.
So how many people are you advertising this as being available for?
Well, we don't advertise the number of people, I don't believe. I think it's, I'll have to look back at our advertising. I don't want to misspeak, but it would be like 4 to 6, I would think.
Per unit?
Yeah, per unit.
Board members, do you have any questions?
Comment. I just noticed that I lived next door to there for like 3 years.
Yeah, it's a cool neighborhood.
Just to the east of there, right, just adjacent to it.
Do you have any unique observations from your time there?
Besides my neighbor almost flooded us out. He left his bathwater running.
Was it the applicant here? Or?
No,
That's the unit next door. And I planted the tree in front of that house next to you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, back in like 2000.
I just want to ask the board, what's the normal time frame that we approve, because he's asking for 10 years?
Depending on the area, yeah. I mean,
Typically,
if it's,
we've been getting like 5, no protest. If there's protests, kind of judge that.
I did have a couple of people signed up to speak on this matter, so we'll call you back up afterward. First, Robert Grantham.
Is it possible that my girlfriend and I could speak together, or do we need to speak individually?
Could she? Well, that's okay. Yeah.
It's okay. We can do it together. Okay.
Hi, I'm Kristen Dawson. We're speaking together because we live together at 825 Northwest 45th, which is...
Get a little closer to the mic. This is the only concern I had with 2 people. Yeah.
So we're at 825 Northwest 45th, which is across the street and just a little bit down. And we lived there for almost 10 years. And primarily on this street, it's a combination of homeowners and long-term rentals, and not Airbnb type. But we are, we're aware that it's close to the Western District. We're only, a block and a half off of Western. And, we very much, like that the area's improving. They're putting in some new homes that are actually like $500,000 homes. And so, we're really glad that things are progressing. But this just not, an Airbnb is just not appropriate for our street because it is homeowners and long-term rentals. And, I don't know much about city planning, but I assume that what you guys are doing is you're balancing kind of the quality of life of people who've lived in that area, especially people like us who've lived there for almost 10 years, with, the legitimate financial interests of people who don't actually live there. And I'm not sure if you guys live in Oklahoma City or where you guys are from. Tried to look you up on the internet, but found out it's a little harder than you would think.
It seems to be impossible to actually look up who owns
certain series LLCs.
Yeah,
so, that's kind of goes to one of our problems with this is that, for instance, if we had people there with Airbnb and they were causing a lot of ruckus, coming home, if I had to guess, probably the people who would be doing just nightly rentals would be people who are wanting to go and get drunk on Western and not have to drive home. So it's just a guess, so I don't know. And so if we do have a problem with people like that on our street, we don't even have anybody that we can call, you know? So I think that's the reason why you guys, I'm guessing, but I think that's probably the reason why you guys separate out Airbnbs where the owner is actually there at the home. Because if the Airbnb owner is actually there at the home and the people are loud, they're going to say, stop. But if the owner is not there at the home, they can't really do anything about it. And so we don't really particularly want, there are actually quite a lot of, you know, people who get drunk on Western because they're trying to have fun on Friday and Saturday nights. But we don't really want it in, you know, to be disturbing our neighborhood, particularly on both sides of us. The people have young kids. And also with the issue with parking, I'm not sure, but I think the Tuckers, that may be where you lived, I'm not sure. I think they may have 4 units instead of 2 duplexes. I'm not 100% sure. But they've had long-term tenants there. That's the kind of the twin property that looks just the same next to it. And I know that they've had some long-term renters there. So even if it is rental, they've been living there for years. And they'll have to deal with that. And I don't, but anyways, I'm not sure, but I think it's like a 4-plex, in which case if you did decide to subdivide it, there could potentially be, you know, 8 cars, 10 cars. And I don't know how big that pad is behind the house, but I sincerely doubt you're going to fit 8 or 10 cars in a backyard. And so, you know, then that would potentially affect the street parking. And I just, you know, I don't know issues of zoning particularly, but I do think that it would disrupt the people on the street and the quality of life. And then also, so another thing to balance, I would imagine, is the need for this, right? And so there are 3 hotels within walking distance. So you've got the Sleep Inn, which like from the Wedge Pizzeria is like 0.4 of a mile, or from Hideaway is like 0.2 of a mile. So you can just walk to the Sleep Inn. You've also got the Hyatt Place. You've got Courtyard by Marriott. So there's quite a number of lodging places close by that you could walk to. So I just don't see why you would particularly want to bother the people in the neighborhood when you don't have to. And I'm not like against Airbnbs. My uncle has an Airbnb, but it's where he lives. So he has had trouble, people who come, but he's there and he's there on site and he can deal with the issues. And the problem kind of more arises when you're not on site. And then also, you know, we are a little bit worried about if, you know, you grant that you, as we're talking about precedent earlier with some of your other cases, and if you grant this, you know, it could potentially turn, you know, it's a mix of homeowners and long-term rentals, and some of the other long-term rentals could become Airbnbs as well, and that's just going to drive out all of the homeowners in that area, I feel. And what else? Do you have other things?
So Kristen is a doctor. I'm a nurse. I don't know how much that matters, but we just don't want a bunch of noise at night is our primary concern. And that affects the quality of care that we can provide to our patients if we don't get good rest because people are making a bunch of noise down the street. So that would be my concern.
And currently, as it is, it's very infrequent that we get drunk people. We do sometimes get drunk people from Western that go down our street to go to Douglas Park and come back. And they are disruptive, but it's very infrequent right now. So we don't particularly want that to increase. So.
That's it.
Board members, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We've got Lee McGoodwin.
Lee McGoodwin. I live at 10101 Tompkins Place, Oklahoma City. My husband and I bought 813 in the late 70s on Northwest 45th Street. We raised our boys there. I'm a pharmacist. He's a teacher. We bought this property as rental property, investment property. It's our retirement. And now we've got a hotel that doesn't pay taxes or has anyone at the desk. I totally agree with the person who spoke just before me. I really have concerns about this sort of facility. And we also owned 824 Northwest 45th Street, We gave that to my son. My son is 38. He looked into this property. We told him this is single family only, and he wanted to see if he could build something more. So think about this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Like to address any of the concerns?
Yeah, I could address some of those. As far as the noise, it seems like the primary concern of the first applicant was, or the contestant, was the noise. But we have invested in noise monitoring, so the decibel levels are always monitored, and we get notified if those are out of whack. So, and as far as the second was, we're not paying taxes. We do actually pay taxes. So Airbnb collects the taxes for us and submits those to the city. So
You're a Series LLC. How many other?
We don't have any others. It's just one series. I'm a CPA, so like I probably went a little overboard on the formation of the entity.
Are you going to manage the property, or do you have a property management company?
No, we are managing it.
Okay. And you have to forgive me, where do you live?
I live in 2649 North. It's Oklahoma City, but north side. So it's Quail Springs area. But I make frequent trips down to 45th, probably weekly.
Okay. I know I always appreciate the concerns of the protestants. They're the least far removed from the area. I'm very familiar with the area, but they are invested in the area. One of the things I'm particularly concerned about from a city planning perspective is not changing the culture of certain areas and having an entire area, near your area, becoming short-term rentals. That just destroys any kind of culture that area had, other than having now short-term rental culture, which doesn't really speak or add anything to the city of Oklahoma City. So I think the city council intended for these to be pretty rare. I know we're keeping an eye on these and the frequency in particular areas. Eventually, my understanding is there's going to be a system that tracks all the permits that come out, so we'll be able to identify areas that have a lot of these. I'm not aware of very many. I know your application talks about there are very few.
I did my own personal research on Airbnb to see if there's any others, and there is one other in the whole, like, Douglas Place edition, which is several hundred homes. So.
Yeah, and I know of one in the area, but it's on 41st Street. But those are kind of my comments. I don't think it's enough. My concerns aren't enough to not support the application, but I would want to have a couple of conditions and have it be for a shorter amount of time, just to
and we would totally accept that and appreciate it.
See if there are any issues that do arise, and if issues do arise, then we'll have.
And also, I would be happy to provide my contact information to anybody who wants it, and they can call my cell phone. I own my own CPA firm in the city, and totally available to anybody to ask for any, and would welcome it. If there's any problems, we don't want problems. We want to be good neighbors.
Board members, do you have any questions of the applicant? I think we've got one other comment, but are there questions of the applicant before we get there? Okay. I'm sorry, could you come just to get it on the record, speak on the microphone? Thank you.
I'm saying, I just want to make clear, I'm not saying like they shouldn't have rentals or something like that. It's just the long-term rentals, like, one of the rentals next to us, inevitably, whenever you have anybody move in next to you, you always have a little bit, like you're always very polite to each other, but there's a little bit of like, ooh, they're playing that music late at night. But the thing is when they're there for a long time, you iron all of that stuff out and you become good friends. My partner actually donated his car to the previous people who rented next to us because it was a young man who had lost his father. So when he got his driver's license, my partner gave him his car. So we have really good relationships. So it's not like I'm saying I don't want you to be able to make money. I'm just saying if you have a long-term rental, you can smooth out some of those issues that you have with neighbors, because it's not like we have 1 acre lots where you have tons of space. And so if you could just do like longer term rentals rather than night to night rentals, it's going to disrupt the neighbors and disrupt the neighborhood so much less. So I kind of feel like right now we're talking about quality of life of the people who already live here versus you know, you have to have a financial interest in your property. You absolutely should. But he can make money renting. I know this because, you know, the Tuckers who own the one next door, I grew up next to them and they drove me to school when I was younger. And I know they make money off of their rental. So it's possible to make money off of long-term rentals. It's just you might make more money off of an Airbnb. But I feel like the interest here that we're discussing about is which is more important. Is making a little bit more money off of an Airbnb more important, or is the quality of the life of the people who've lived there, and in my case have lived there almost 10 years, more important? So I kind of feel like that's where, and he's a very nice guy. When we were out there, he, you know, gave me the papers and everything. So I'm not, I mean, nothing personally, and I would like him to make lots of money, but I just kind of, that's where I'm coming from, since I actually do live there.
Okay, thank you.
One quick question. How close is your house to this property?
My house is, it's 825, so it's across the street and it's a few down.
Okay.
But I also do know the Tuckers who live right next door on the one that looks exactly the same, and they are not excited about this at all. So. Yeah.
These are not easy issues. City Council's tasked us with deciding them, but there's always tension between the rights of many in the neighborhood and the individual property owner's rights. And there's, I mean, you can say that you prefer a renter there, or if you get a bad tenant that you have to live next to for 2 years. We've seen that here, and more particularly in the context of property owner rights. A lot of landlords don't have very good renters, and they destroy the property, and they find that they don't have those problems with Airbnb because there's a rating system, and they're only there for 2 or 3 nights, and so they don't have time to destroy the property generally. So there's all these things that we keep in mind. And in general, what we've been doing is some will deny, some will grant, but the ones that we grant where we think conditions are necessary, we'll grant them with conditions and for a short period of time. Encouraging the neighbors that if you do see issues that you can't resolve, you call the city's action center and report a complaint. And if they get enough complaints, they have to come back before this board, and they risk losing their special exception, and in some cases a variance. And so there are remedies built into what the city council passed. It's not perfect. It's got problems, but it's what we have to work with. And it might change over the next 5 years. And that's one of the reasons we're not granting generally 10-year special exceptions, is because this might change. But for me, some of the conditions that come to mind is it cannot be advertised as having on-street parking, and it may only be advertised as up to 4, sleeping up to 4 people per unit. So those are the ones that come to mind. I'm open to suggestions. And then for a period of maybe 2 years. That's what I'm thinking, but I'm open to the rest of the board.
I can agree with that.
I'd like to add a condition that you, I'd like to add a condition before we get a motion that you provide cell and email address, contact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, yeah, we'd be agreeable to any of those conditions.
Any other questions on a motion?
I'll make a motion if that's everybody. Motion to approve a special exception with the conditions that there be no on-street parking, term of 2 years, and share contact information with neighbors, and that's it.
And up to 4 people per unit?
4 people per unit.
And this is as advertised, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if it's determined that you're not advertising it in accordance with these conditions, you have to come back before the board.
Sure.
And you risk losing your special exception.
Right.
Do you have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve the special exception in case number 14702 for the reasons that it meets the statutory conditions for a special exception. Subject to the following conditions, the advertisement must state that there will be no on-street parking, and that will sleep up to 4 people per unit, and the applicant must provide contact information up to date to any neighbor that requests, and the special exceptions for a period of 2 years. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you.
Item 10, 14696, application for special exception to allow lodging accommodations, home sharing in the HP district located at 1708 North Francis Avenue.
Guess I'm not too popular. My name is Andrew Diaz. I'm owner-resident at 825 Northwest 16th Street. The property of 1708 is on the back of our property, just given a different address because the electric, I guess, needed it. So, never done this before, so I don't know what you need. So.
Well, you don't have anybody from HP here, so you have that in your favor.
Yeah, right, I know, that was good. I was glad to see everyone clear out. So.
We did get one letter of opposition. Have you seen that?
No, I was not aware.
You can have mine. If you take a look at that. And
Yeah. Can I keep this, sir?
I did have a couple of questions, but did you want to address the protests?
I know Ms. Polofsky, she's correct, her house is across the street and to the east of ours, and whereas I think I have to smile when she talks about community and neighborhood are fragile concepts. Been there 5 years. She has never come across the street to say hello. She's never participated in any single block party event we've had. So I take her definition of what she feels is community and neighborly a little differently. But no, I mean, but to the, I'd say the entire, when you think about it, it's not just one neighbor. You know, we are concerned about all of our neighbors. We did talk to them, and as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with one of them last night, and you know, we listening to the previous ones, the concerns of the other individuals in the neighborhoods. I think it does make a difference that we do live there, you know, and that is a requirement by the HP, I believe, is who requires that. And you know, because we don't want, you know, my wife and I, we just built that garage, replaced an old existing structure that had been initially some kind of, it was a living quarters of some sorts. I don't know, completely no, but it was a complete disrepair. So, and we put a lot of money in there, you know, and we don't want it destroyed in any way, shape, or form. We love that neighborhood because it is a neighborhood. That block of 16th Street is phenomenal, and we want to maintain that. And we do look at the opportunity of having, you know, different people coming in, not really as an opportunity to meet more people and, you know, let people who aren't from Oklahoma City necessarily see what Oklahoma City has to offer, and we just think it's a great way to promote the city as well. But you know, ultimately, if it's not something that's working out from either it's too much of a pain to maintain, or we're getting too many complaints, we probably won't continue doing it. But for now, that's, you know, we want to see how it goes. So,
how many rooms?
It's basically a studio, so it's about, I think it's about 300 square feet. So basically, yeah, just I'm trying to think, it's about 10 by about 30, I believe. So
1 to 2 people.
1 to 2 people, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So parking will be on site and.
Yeah, we've got space on the garage, and I mean, as it already is. I mean, I think if you look at a couple of the images, you see that. Well, there's an image of the garage, and there's the front of a truck that is my backup truck, backup vehicle, I guess you would call it. And then there's another image, I think before that. There's another image kind of from across the street looking at the corner of 16th and Francis. And I'll be quite honest, I don't know whose car that is in that image, but that's not, you know. On that side of Francis, with our house, I mean, occasionally, the people who park there are, if I have somebody doing work around the house, or landscapers for the people across the street, typically. That's about it, so.
I don't see anyone signed up to speak or here to speak. I think these are, some of the other cases, we kind of have to analyze what the city council intended. I think it's pretty clear that this is one of the situations that they did intend, is if you've got kind of an apartment in the backyard, owners on site in the main house, and then you have a separate unit. So I can support it. I don't know if I'd want to put any conditions at all. I think I can support it as it is, since it's only 1 to 2 people. HP recommended 2 years. I can support that as well.
I move that we support the application with the limit of 2 years.
Motion and a second to approve case number 14696 for the reason that it meets the statutory condition for special exception for a period of 2 years. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you.
Item 11, case number 14686 and 687, for special exception for home sharing at 811 and 811 and a half and West 20th.
The applicant hiding?
There it is.
Do the same as 9?
Will everyone be here for the February 20th meeting? Do you know any conflicts?
Could be.
I'd support moving this application and item number, I think it was 8, to the February 20th meeting. Unless anyone had any other
Can we do
comments.
one motion, 2 items to continue, or you want 2 motions? I move we continue 14698, which is item 8 for us, and this one is number 11, be 14686, 687 to 220.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to continue item numbers 8 and 11 to the February 20th, 2020 meeting. Cast your votes, please. And those items are continued. Seeing no additional items, communications or board reports, if anyone has any. Seeing no citizens to be heard or other business, we are adjourned.